Good morning and welcome, everyone. My name is Nicole Janowski, and I am the Girl Up President at Whitney Young High School. Thank you for joining us for this year's Global Health and Development Symposium. I'm excited to introduce to you this next panel, which will explore gender stereotypes in the media. Today, children are interacting with media for up to 7 hours a day, which can greatly influence social and cultural norms. What strategies are effective in reducing women's objectification in the media and establishing new standards across the globe? Whether it's the refugee crisis or the stigmatization of the Chibok girls in Nigeria, how are advocacy organizations like UNICEF working to overcome stereotypes and foster gender equity and inclusion? Today's panelists will share their thoughts on how everyone from international organizations to media conglomerates can shatter stereotypes at an early age and progress towards gender equality in the media. Our speakers' bios can be seen on screen, but I'd like to highlight some of their most notable achievements. Our first panelist is Madonna Badger. She is the founder and chief executive officer at Badger & Winners, an advertising, branding, and design agency working for brands like Chanel, CoverGirl, Nordstrom to build brand love with women. Through her viral and award-winning campaign, #WomenNotObjects, she has pledged her agency with no longer create imagery objectifying women and will raise the standards of women's portrayal in advertising. Our second panelist is Madeline Nonno. She is the CEO of Green Davis Institute on Gender Media. She was the executive vice president at Nizel EDI, senior vice president for marketing alliances and digital media at Hallmark Channel, and vice president for strategic marketing at Universal Studios Home Video. Our third and final panelist is Claudia Gomez-Romo. She's a special advisor at UNICEF. She has led public relations, branding, and marketing strategies for some of the world's biggest global organizations, including World Economic Forum, the UN Refugee Agency, and Global Fund to fight AIDS, TB, and malaria. And lastly, we'd like to welcome back our moderator, Julie Gichuru. And as you know, she's a Kenyan entrepreneur, African media personality, and founder CEO Arimus Media. Following the panel, we will take questions from the audience, as well as through our online survey application. The link is currently displayed on screen, or will be displayed on screen. If you have an internet-enabled device, please type in chi.cnf.io directly into your browser and select today's program. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much. Can I start by saying it's so inspiring to see the young here being part of this, and can you imagine 20 years from now the impact that someone like Nicole will have? So let's give her another round of applause, please. Delighted to be back with an incredible panel, and after 18 years in the media, let me start by first and foremost saying we cannot possibly overestimate the importance of the things that we see in the media, from advertising to content in films and series and much more. It really does solidify stereotypes, it builds perceptions, and it shapes our mindset. So this is an absolutely critical session. We shared some numbers in the morning. I'd just like to share a statistic with you that I had from the panel just a short while ago. Just a few years ago, 3% of creative directors were women. 3%. I'm told a couple of years later it's now 11%. Ladies and gentlemen, 11%. And yet in America, 80% of your consumers are women. So this is just giving you an idea of the problem that we're facing. As we go into this discussion, I want to start with context from each of you in your specific areas. What are you experiencing? What are the stereotypes or the lack of share of voice or participation that you are facing? And how are you dealing with this situation? Let's just start with that foundational context, please.
Okay. Great. Hi, I'm Madonna Badger. I'm so happy to be here. Sorry, I'm first, and I'm from the South, so of course I have to say hi. We were doing a project for a $10 billion cosmetic company, and it was around red lipstick. And so we went out and just wanted to talk to some, real women. And we said, okay, how do you feel about red lipstick? And they said, oh, I love it. It makes me feel great. It makes me feel like I can take on my day. I love, love, love it. And we said, perfect. Okay, so how do you feel about wearing red lipstick to ask for a raise? And they were like, oh, no, I would never do that. I would never want to push my femininity into someone else's face. And so that really became, for me, the kind of lightning rod of the conundrum of what was happening with these young women, and why wouldn't they want to use something that they felt made them powerful to do something like ask for a raise. And what we discovered, the solution or the issue at hand was really objectification. That they felt like they were, that women overall in advertising, are either treated like props without an agency or a narrative, without the ability to do anything. Parts, so just, body parts, breasts, rear ends, etc. Plastic, they're beyond sort of achievability, human achievability by retouching. And the last way that we say that people can know is empathy. So that was the film, which was, I'm your mom, I'm your CEO, I'm your sister. Do you really want to talk to me that way in advertising? And the reason why this is such an issue is because in this country, the majority of young girls have been on a diet by the age of 7. And a majority of 11-year-old girls would rather get cancer than be fat. So, it's ubiquitous, and it has many harms.
It makes me shudder, to be honest, and it just points to a looming crisis that is just going to grow if it's not dealt with. But did you guys all get a chance to see the video of the Women Not Objects campaign? How many of you saw that on the screen? Was that moving? I'm just going to ask the team to also make sure they play it again after this session, just so people kind of have that in mind. Madeline, let me come to you. What are the realities that you're facing and dealing with in your particular space? And how are you addressing the challenges that you're facing? Thank you.
So just by a show of hands, how many of you, I'm sure you're familiar with Geena Davis, the actor, who's my boss, but how many of you have ever heard of the Geena Davis Institute? Wow. Oh, that's wonderful. So our work came out of a very personal experience for Geena. She's a very accomplished actor, but it was when she started having her children that this idea of unconscious gender bias for on-screen portrayals kicked in. And she was watching little kids programming with her daughter, who at the time was 2, and she didn't see any female characters. And the few female characters that she saw were objectified, didn't contribute to the story arc, weren't having adventures. And she thought, how is this possible? I know this being an actor in Hollywood, but this is little kids programming, movies, TV shows. And when she would talk to her friends about it, she'd say, hey, did you notice in such and such movie there was only one female character? And her friend said, no, I really didn't notice that. And when she'd go on meetings for potential acting jobs, she would ask the same question. And they would say, no, that's been fixed. We have this character, we have that character. And in all sincerity, they thought because there was one really great female character that they had the entire gender covered. And what's interesting about Hollywood, and also with a lot of corporates, you all have your CSR programs, you all have CDOs, but no one put gender on the agenda as part of their diversity and inclusion. If you were to ask, and maybe some of you who run those departments, ask yourself, is gender part of your diversity and inclusive initiatives? 9 times out of 10, the answer is no. And so fast forward later, Geena actually pioneered the field of research called gender in media. And what we do is we analyze on-screen portrayals. And what we have found historically is that there's just a huge disparity in the portrayals of female characters. And it's not only the quantity, but also the quality. So for example, across film and TV and kids shows, when you look at STEM, I'm sure a lot of you in the room are involved in science, technology, engineering, and math, say women hold around 25% of all the, STEM jobs, but it's under 7% across TV and film. And when you think about our children not pursuing STEM, and we know by 2020 there's going to be over 1 million jobs that we can't fill in the United States because our children aren't pursuing careers in STEM. So there's lots of doctors, and thank God we have all of those medical shows for that, and we have an abundance of forensic scientists because of all the CSI shows. But when it comes to engineering and math, it's single digits in terms of portrayals. So, but it's also a big opportunity, and it's easy to fix, which I know we'll get into.
We're coming to that. And, the power of media for positive and negative is really incredible. And I'm coming to UNICEF now. Yesterday at the United Nations General Assembly, we held a side session with UNICEF on investing in early years. And I actually met a Sesame Street Muppet called Chumki. And Chumki is based in India. And she's a little girl in her uniform. And she's actually a role model for millions of other Indian girls, but also for little boys and families and parents, and she's changing mindsets. It was so inspirational to see that, Claudia. Maybe I could ask you, take us through the UNICEF experience. You work with a lot of partners and stakeholders. You work at global level, at local level, and you're changing mindsets very successfully. Take us through that, please.
But also, let's start with, there's huge progress. I mean, like if President Obama a couple of days ago came to a summit that Melinda Gates did precisely on women and girls, and he spent 45 minutes talking about his experience on women and girls and how he saw not only progress made, but necessary when you invest in women and girls. But he said something that struck me, which is, if you would be a sperm out there flying around the sky, and you had to choose what time, what century, what country would you be born in, regardless of whether you would be a boy or a girl, or like black or white or tall or small, you would actually choose this time around, because it's never been a better place for, like in terms of education, less violence, more opportunities for women. So let's start with a positive note. We are making progress. This is not enough. We're not going to stop here, but let's start actually thinking that what we're doing is working. And I think that what we see is that stereotypes start early. Very early. The minds of babies are set by examples, are set by visuals, are set by signals that actually, as brands, are created and formed. And then when you're like in your teenagers, they are set in stone and you're fried. More or less, we have to start working. And this is what we discovered, what we've been working on as UNICEF and other organizations as well. And you probably abide to that, the work that I so much admire what you're doing, is the role of media is crucial, but you need to start early and don't stop the line. It's not necessary to do one program where you go to a school when you're a 6-year-old and pretend that that's it. You really need to start working on at the community level. And this is what I see globally, because poverty is sexist. If there is one vulnerable human being that is more affected if there is a crisis, are girls. If there's a mother in Latin America that has 1 bread and 5 children, she will feed the boys before the girl. If there's one person that has to go and carry the water for the entire household, is the girl. The boys will go to school because the mothers are watching soap operas that tell them that the heroes are the men, and that the girls are the objects that are serving the family. So we have to actually take into consideration what partnerships in the experience of the 50 years of UNICEF have worked to really change at the community level, and you have to work at every level. So we work at the community level doing little pieces of theater to explain to mothers that girls actually are going to pay off by far more. I see it now in my country with a huge earthquake that is happening right now. It is girls that have organized themselves quicker to do a shelter and just try to get more organizations. It is the girls who are calling on the celebrities to make sure that people are organized. So in terms of examples that I think I would like to bring to your attention, in terms of what the role and the power of the media is cinema. is advertisement. It is television. It is actually putting women not only at the dialogue level, but also behind the scenes. Because if you have only 11% of women directing films or 14% of women directing advertisement, if you're directing an ad and you're a guy and you have a truck advertisement, of course you're going to put a truck driver as a man because that's what you know, that's what you see. But at reality level, what we need to start changing, and what I have seen with Sesame Street, with Lego, or for example, and everybody's jumping into this train again, let's not forget that we're making progress. So the more you call on people to do things, the more reception you're going to feel. We called on Spice Girls. Can you give us your music so that we can do a video clip? And I would like to invite everybody to watch it. It's called Tell Me What You Want, What You Really, Really Want. It went crazy in India, because what girls really, really want in India is to stop sex abuse. And what they really, really want in Bangladesh is to stop child marriage. So let's give girls the opportunity to tell us what they really, really want, and tell them that this is the time for women, and that we're not going to be shy in playing the gender card, because it is what a role model at the individual level can do.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you for that. It's uplifting. And sometimes we really need to be uplifted in sometimes. Let me come back to you now, Madonna, and the question of objectification. There are so many partners, stakeholders in this room, millions others outside who might be asking, how can we play a role in this space and make a difference? If you were to call on specific actors, stakeholders, who would you want to see really step up, and what would you want to see them do?
We discovered this problem. I can only speak for myself. So we discovered this problem, and we decided to make a film about what we were seeing. And then we made another film about the harm that it causes. And then we made another film about what was happening to children when they saw it. And the good news is that we targeted the Cannes Lions because that's the most prestigious award that anyone can get in advertising. And I've only been 2 years, but it's consistently like 5 men go up, 3 men go up to take the award, 8 men go up with 1 woman. It's really, just a kind of a bro fest, overall. And so we worked with the people that run Cannes, and they agreed to put in a new jury packet, in a new sort of idea in the jury packet, which basically says objectification harms everyone, men and women. Here are the filters you can use, but the number 1 filter is empathy. And so that's the beginning of hopefully change within that industry, so that advertising and creative people can look at the work differently. So I think anyone in this room, the best thing that you can do is look at the work that's being shown to you, if you're in that position, look at the work around you, write emails, and talk to your kids about what they're seeing and how it is that it's not okay to use a woman's body part to sell something. And that as long as we aren't sort of portrayed as equal, we're not going to be treated as equal.
Right.
And so that's really the idea, is the portrayal, and letting kids know how fake it is and why it's fake and why it doesn't matter.
So that's incredible. Strategically targeting a partner who can make effective change in the area and impact, but also each of us at individual level needs to step up and make sure we're able to give voice to the reality. Madeline, let me come to you now. And one of the things that you have suggested is that we must have more women right across the chain of film production. How are you helping to effect that, and what impact do you hope it will have?
Our focus is really on on-screen portrayals and data, real data, in real time that people can use. And having the data has been the key to our success, because what we discovered for our issue around portrayals was unconscious bias. And unconscious bias that both men and women have. And by having the data and by presenting it directly to content creators, whether it's a movie studio, it's a premium streaming video network, it's a broadcast network, when we come to them with the data, they're astonished. And they're quite willing to make change and are making changes. For us, the key has been the cycle of change. And the greatest impact for us is in pre-production, because it's in pre-production when things are in a script form or they haven't, locked their project, that as content creators, they can make the most change. So for example, in the United States, we produce 400 or 500 movies. An animated movie takes 3 to 5 years. A regular movie takes about 22 months. So for us, we have to get into the cycle of change right as they're writing the script. And for us, it's really easy. Go through the script, change the names. Just change them to female, and you've created some really incredible characters. And when we talk about female, we're talking about intersectionality. We're talking about inclusiveness. We're talking about disabilities. We're talking about race. We're talking about all shades and colors, of women. We're not, just to be clear on that, we look at all of those numbers. And just to give you some specific examples, what does that mean? So there was a movie, some of you a few years ago, if you have young kids, called Hotel Transylvania. Yeah. So at the time when we met the producer, Michelle Murdocha, she was 2/3 done with the film. Now, this is animation. It takes 3 to 5 years for an animated film to come out. And when she saw the data, she thought, oh my goodness, what can I do? Because we look at protagonists, but what we say to people is, make what you're gonna make. Just make it half female. Unless you're doing a historical reenactment, something from World War I, there's a real opportunity to infuse it with women. And I'll digress for a minute, because how many of you saw Dunkirk? Okay, well, what I noticed, and I don't know if you noticed, that they infused that movie. Now, it's World War II, true story. There were lots of females in the background character. Every time there was a ship, there were a ton of women as nurses. At the end of the movie, where they have the little ships that came to save everybody, there were lots of women just standing on the boats. So even though that's a historical reenactment, and I don't know Christopher Nolan, and I hope the heck it was intentional, but there were a lot of women in that movie. So what she did was, the movie, Hotel Transylvania was about witches and hags and Dracula and his daughter. And she said, triple up the witches, triple up the hags. And she made sure that the background characters, that there was as many females as possible. Another movie that came out from Pixar, it was called Monsters University, and the director, Dan Scanlon, had said to us, I remember what you said about background characters, go see my new movie. And it was 50% female, because it was a college campus. And even though the lead character was a boy, he had tons of sororities and just tons of women, wall-to-wall women and girls in that movie. So it's an easy, on-screen portrayals, it's a very easy thing to fix, and it's something that men and women, can fix together. The behind the scenes is much, much more complicated, but without having the data, we would not be as successful as we have been.
We would go into behind the scenes if we had the time, but we don't have the time. I'm going to come very quickly to you, Claudia, and the idea of impact. What can you share with us, the easy lessons that we can perhaps scale up from the UNICEF experiences and campaigns?
And I want to start by saying thank you for organizing this event. It's wonderful to see more of these. And, this is a 40-minute session, and I took 4 hours flight in and out. I'm just coming from New York because I want to support more of these conversations happening. And it is particularly happy for me because it's the first time that I am coming to Chicago, having married a Chicago person on Sunday. So it is great to be home.
Oh, congratulations. Yes.
As Claudia, Romo, I don't know, but also, I'm very pleased to be talking about this today because my daughter, who's 12, is speaking at the United Nations at 3 o'clock, and I actually chose to be here, and she talking there, talking about the power of girls in changing the world for girls. So this is a 12-year-old, my daughter, obviously I'm biased, but she actually, she's the ambassador of a company started by a 16-year-old girl. And the idea is that they produce fashion. The company is called Nalu, which means waves in Hawaiian, now I learned. And what they do is produce sweatshirts and produce jackets and backpacks, because for every 4 products that they sell, they give an uniform to countries like India, Indonesia, Bangladesh, and other stupid, countries that have this stupid legislation where uniforms are obligatory. When they are 12, the government stops paying for them, but the law continues, and if you don't have $10 to pay for your uniform, mostly girls don't get it in the family. And then my daughter said, like, I cannot bear the thought of actually being a mother next year. So we see this generation that, thanks to social media, is connected, is more embracive, is more taking action, and that's the impact of culture. It's impacting the brains of people to feel empowered,
To act.
and to feel that they can do this. So the Sesame Street character that you saw, maybe it took 5 years, but it's getting into the brains of the people that just need a chance to say, this is what I'm gonna be doing.
That's powerful, and congratulations on the wedding. Congratulations on your daughter.
I
Yes.
wanted to congratulate Madonna for the Cannes Advertisement Festival success. I want to share with you that now we took it further, and on Friday, 14th of September, we announced, and I'm the chairwoman of the jury, we announced that Cannes Advertisement will launch a new set of awards called the SDG Lion Awards, the Sustainable Development Goals Awards, because very much based on gender, pushing gender and women, because we know that unless we get women into development and into fixing the world, the Sustainable Development Goals and no other plan will succeed.
It's coming together. It's coming together. I have a few questions coming through. Quite a few are asking about women of color and their portrayal and their access to roles and opportunities. I'll come to that. There's another one that came through. Kim Kardashian and women's empowerment. Discuss. So
It's not true. Kim Kardashian is not the symbol of empowerment that she pretends to be. And she is actually a part of, sadly, a group of women who I am a part of every now and then that self-objectifies. And so when you take the overall culture and that we live in and apply it to yourself, and you can, let's say I'm a 15-year-old girl, and I can never measure up. I can never look like Kim Kardashian. I can't get those anything. So, in our second film, we actually showed the lips when all the young girls were trying to, and the crying, and so it's there's a great TED Talk called "The Sexy Lie," and that is that somehow being sexy means being empowered. Can
I just get the take of this room? Kim Kardashian, if you think she's empowered or empowering women, please put up your hand. Exactly. Not a single one. Okay.
Can I ask the same about Wonder Woman?
Wonder Woman?
Wonder Woman? You know, the same discussion happened at our development world about Wonder Woman, whether we should support her or not, whether she was representing women empowerment or not. Can I, now that I'm talking about that, like I have the microphone, the talking pen, on women of color. And look,
Thank you.
I want to emphasize what I said before, which I think it is my one point, is women have to play the card of being a woman. The times have changed when you thought it was going to be against your career or against your society or against something, because I am Mexican Jewish woman, and it is because of that that I am where I am, not despite of that. And if I wouldn't be saying it, if I wouldn't be saying, you know what, it is because I'm a woman that I deserve to be on the table. It is because I am all of the minorities that I am. I'm just not black, but overall, you know, like I can count the rest. But overall, if we don't play the card, if we don't allow each other, we're not going to be pushing and elbowing the room for other, you know, like other groups. So let's play the card. forward. Let's pick up and let's stand up for others.
But can I also just emphasize, it's not playing the card, it is our card.
Yeah, but we don't play it.
Exactly, and I am a woman, and there's nothing wrong with me being a woman, and that doesn't mean I need any more merit than a man to be. And so, one of the Scandinavian politicians said to us, she never avoids the red dress. Same thing as the red lipstick. And she said some people on that important day they don't want to wear, she says, I wear the red dress. And so I think that's something as women we need to start to be able to boldly accept and take forward. Madeline, let me come to you on those two issues, the minority question and the Kim Kardashian question.
Well, one of the things we found out when we were looking at TV is that reality TV is the most gender-balanced programming. So there's that. But what was interesting, this wasn't our study, but some academics out of Knox College, which I believe is in Illinois, actually, did a study with paper dolls, and it was the first time, this was about 3 or 4 years ago, and they found that girls as young as 6 were self-sexualizing. And that was the first time we'd ever seen something where it was girls that were 6 years old. And they did a study with paper dolls, and they had a sexy paper doll, they had a normal paper doll, and they asked them, which paper doll do you want to be? And they picked a sexy paper doll. And they asked them why. I'm like, well, she gets a lot of attention, people like her, et cetera, et cetera. And they're too young to really understand, what's behind that. And it was only with the mitigating language of a parent that media impression didn't stick on them. So that's an example of how pervasive, media can be. But on the flip side, I wanted to give a positive example. My boss had pursued archery. I don't know if any of you remember. Okay, she qualified for the Olympic trials because she gets obsessed with things. And 2 years ago, her archery coach called her and said, girls' participation in archery has shot up. And this was in 2002. So what happened in 2002 in the film industry? Anyone want to shout out and guess? And Brave. So we worked with the National Association of Archery. We studied all of their members, and 7 out of 10 girls named Katniss and Merida as the reason why they took up archery. And guess what? It shot up to 105%. So it is a direct correlation. What they see, and our tagline is, if she can see it, she can be it. So they didn't wait. This didn't happen gradually. They saw those movies and said, I'm going for it. I want to get into archery. It's immediate.
Right.
So media has a tremendous opportunity to inspire.
It's incredibly powerful. Hands up, please, questions coming to the floor. If I can take 3, I will. There's a lady right there. Yes, thank you. Any other hands at the moment? There's a lady on that end as well. Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Caroline. I'm a current high school student, and I guess the thing I kept thinking about during your discussion was about playing the woman card. And one of the questions up there previously was should the government mandate equal balance of men and women in the workplace? And my current opinion on that, if I can share it, is that in a way it would be kind of ironic, because then we are playing the woman card oh, I'm a woman, so I get that job, because that makes it balanced. So what are your viewpoints on playing the card, and if it's a fair thing to say?
Okay. Thank you for that. The other hand was still on that side of the room. Yes, thank you. Anyone else? Am I missing? And a gentleman here. Thank you.
So my question is, how would you describe balancing the self-objectification, which you referenced, and also embracing your femininity and wearing the red lipstick, wearing the red dress, but also being conscious of not self-objectifying?
Thank you. That's an excellent question. Gentleman over here, thank you. Did you introduce yourself?
I did not. My name is Megan, and I'm an attorney.
Hi, Julie. I'm Yusuf. I used to watch you on Citizen TV Kenya.
Oh, wow. Hi.
And I grew up Kenya refugee camp in Dadaab. That's the largest refugee camp in the world in Kenya. And I was really glad. I just came back from Nairobi a week ago. And that's when the election was just concluded. The Kenyans have voted three women governors in Kenya and a lot of senators and 47 women rep. What do you think about Kenya is doing when it comes to democracy, electing women as senators, governors, and other top positions in Kenya?
You want my impression of the evolution?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So we'll come back now, and we've had some excellent questions. So let's start with the first two. Playing the woman card and the question of quotas, and I guess the unasked question around merit that sits there somewhere, and how do we take our space without feeling like we need to apologize? You see, the problem is many women who are actually qualified to do a lot of things do not believe that they are qualified, and yet many men who are not qualified to do a lot of things believe they are overqualified. And no, these are just some of the things we contend with. And coming to the whole balancing of self-objectification and embracing our womanhood unapologetically, these are tough ones. Let me start with you, Madonna.
I think that they both have the same answer in a way for me, and that is mentorship. I think that finding a mentor, someone that is literally open, that you can talk to, that you can discuss all of these things around equality in the workplace. And I mean, we're talking about a binary world today, right, of male and female, but we don't live in a binary world. We live in a world of like 33 different gender identities. And you know, everybody's been promising equality for women for a long time. And so I think that getting to the next stage has to be through another woman or a man, or transgender, but a mentor. And that goes for self-objectifying. You know, that has to happen in baby steps. And so the way, you know, to look, that we are not how we look. That is not what defines us. It's what we can do. It's who we are. And a mentor, an older woman mentor that you look up to, that you want what they have, talk to them about, you know, what's happening, what you're feeling, what you're thinking, the reaction you're getting. This is the way to change, is by, you know, literally all of us helping one another.
Thank you. Madeline?
Well, studies have shown that when you have gender parity on boards, the company performs better. And I think it starts at the top. And I can only speak to Hollywood. I can't speak to corporates. And they are corporate, but there's a number of Hollywood entities that are putting forth their expectations of their executives. They are embedding it into compensation packages. And this is with regard to diversity and inclusionness, and in terms of hiring, in terms of the output. And there are certain content creators that are saying, look, if you're going to work with us, this is what our expectation is. And if that doesn't suit you, then maybe you don't want to work with us. And I believe that that's the way to go versus quotas. I think you can have quotas outside of the United States because government funds creative content. But it's not that way. The government does not fund commercial creative content in the United States, so I don't think it's appropriate in that realm.
Right. Claudia?
I thank you for that question. I didn't explain before what I meant. I am not talking about quotas, and I think that there's a huge difference between quotas and playing the card. But look, a couple of years ago, the CEO of a chemical company, very important chemical company, and the CEO of a technology company, very famous technology company, both led by women, they were sacked. They were sacked and they were betrayed by their boards, more or less the same story. And they did not say, you did that partly because I'm a woman. They knew part of it. It was because they were changing and challenging too much of the stereotype. Not so much because of the profits, not so much because every other CEO, male, did the same profit loss as but they did not say it because they were scared that if they would play it, if they would say it, it would actually hinder their future opportunities. And you saw that again, you know, like when Wall Street cases, when people said like, I was a victim of sexual harassment, their futures were affected. That has changed. Look at Silicon Valley. Like the entire thing is on drugs. Everybody's like the gender bombs exploded. Uber actually sacked their CEO because there were sexual abuses, because it was not gender friendly. The time has changed. And right now, I think that there is an explosion also in the consumers that are demanding that. And you can see companies that never would you have thought that are going to in gender empowerment. Target is producing these little toddler, you know, like T-shirts for boys saying, I want to be strong like my mom, because it is actually being permissive. We're winning the battle. We just have to continue. And what I'm saying is that when we don't play the card is because we don't speak up. I am a Latina. I'm deeply involved in Hispanics, and I see that Latinas in this country are the group that is creating more small businesses than any other group, 6 times faster than any other group of Americans, more than any other group. We create more small businesses than any other, yet we make only 23 cents out of $1 that a man would do. Do you think that people are standing up, Latinas are saying, wait, that's not fair. I'm a woman, I deserve the same equal pay? No. And we're playing it down because we're scared that we're going to take the progress out of our way. But no, we have to actually make that case. We have to actually play for each other, because it would be unfair for my daughter who's exposing herself, you know, like going to Indonesia and trying to fight for others, if they wouldn't see that there's other people taking the risk for others. So that's the playing card that I'm talking about.
And I think that's a powerful playing card, and it speaks to the last question from the gentleman, which I'm going to twist slightly to be relevant to the media conversation. Yes, we're electing more women, but we're electing more women because we're getting better educated. We've got free education now in Kenya, so you're getting a different generation coming through. We're starting to see more women in leadership, and so the role modeling is happening and others are following. And maybe I'll just end with a small story. Africa has had a couple of women presidents, which is amazing. And Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf told us a story a short while ago where she was interacting with students in a school, and she was with this young man, and she asked him, what do you want to be when you grow up? And he gave her an answer, and she said, don't you want to be president? And he looked at her and he said, no, that's for women. And that is the power. That is the power of the media. And ladies and gentlemen, it's been such an honor. A big hand for our panel. And thank you all so much. Thank you.